Thank you, Millie and David Adams. Good job. Hello, everybody. Everybody survived Thanksgiving okay? I had a house full of people, a bunch of little kids. It was good. But wasn't Ben Franklin that said after 3 days, visitors are like fish. They kind of start to get a little bit smelly. So it was good to see everybody off. They went back to their hometowns, and everything is kind of returning to a state of order. You know, we live in a world that can be very confusing. It's chaotic at times. And it seems like every time we pick up a newspaper, that news has escalated. And then in our own personal lives, we have problems and we have challenges that weigh heavily on our minds. We have burdens that aren't easy to carry. But no matter what is happening in your life, at any time, any place, you always can say, I am happy to be alive. You might not be happy with some of the things that are taking place, but you can always be happy to be alive because you have life, and that is a gift. You also can be happy to be the person that you are. I'm happy to be me, because that's who you are. You can't change that. There's never been anybody like you. There'll never be anybody in the future like you. I'm happy to be me. And then the third thing is I'm happy to be here now, wherever now might place you. And if you're not happy to be there at that particular time, then leave. You're free. You have liberty. Don't stay in a place you don't feel comfortable with, that you don't like. It's very simple. And you can do that in a very pleasant and polite way. So I'd like you to affirm that with me. Please repeat after me. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be me. And I'm happy to be here now. Thank you. Now, we all have problems, but every problem has a solution. And my cousin Ozzy is a problem solver. For those of you who don't know him, he lives in Dundas, South Dakota. He's never had a job in his life. He lived with his parents till he died, still lives in the house, spends most of his time at Larson's Tavern on the first stool. He considers himself the ambassador of the town. Well, let's turn to cook Thanksgiving dinner for all the guys down at the tavern. And so they all gathered at his house, and he was in the kitchen making all this stuff. And came time to eat, they gathered around the table. Ozzy came in with a beautiful 15-pound turkey on a nice platter that was very well decorated. And as he went to set it down on the table, he tripped, and the turkey slid off the platter. And he tripped over the dog, and the turkey landed right in front of the dog. And it immediately got up and started licking that turkey. You couldn't get enough licking until Cousin Ozzy grabbed that turkey by the leg and disappeared back into the kitchen. Once there, he took a stick of butter and he ran it all over the top, down the sides, and over the legs. He put it on another platter. He put some trimmings along the side. He went back into the dining room. And as he set it on the table, proudly he said, "It's a good thing I cooked too." Problem was solved. Well, I'm going to talk about two things today. First of all, is that inundation of the news that we get about what's going on a global basis. It comes at us 24 hours a day. We're bombarded with negativity. And so what do we do with that? How do we manage? You know, it didn't used to be like that. We would get a newspaper in the morning, read the news, or 6 o'clock news would tell us what's going on, or the 10 o'clock news. But now it's 24 hours a day. And it's on the internet, and it's on the radio. Every place you go, you're getting an up-to-date report of what's taking place around the world. It seems like there's more and more battles taking place. It seems like there's more and more unrest taking place. It seems like there's more and more people that are destitute or whose lives are getting upset by the little skirmishes and battles and wars that take place. Yet sometimes it seems like the only news is bad news. And it can get us down. It can wear us out. It can depress us. But the fact of the matter is, the truth is that research shows over the last couple of decades that living conditions on a world basis have been getting better. They've been getting healthier, they've been getting more humane, and they have been getting happier. The problem is the only thing we see is what's blared out at us 24 hours a day by the news, and they don't cover the good news. What we need to do is put it all into perspective. and realize that the good always outweighs the bad. No matter what is going on in your life, the good always outweighs the bad. And we put it into perspective, we see that world problems exist, they always have, but we've always seemed to make it through. The problems and challenges in our own lives, our personal lives, we've been inundated with them since we came into this world. Yet here we are, each and every one of us, healthy and whole. So we need to put it into perspective and realize that if something difficult comes into our life, a problem, a challenge, a setback of some sort, that's just a part of our lives, and it's not all of our lives. Several years ago, I met a woman who was a professor at the University of Texas, and this was at a wedding reception. We happened to be sitting next to each other. And as the conversation unfolded, she told me that she had just finished up with a bout of breast cancer. And I said, well, I've never experienced anything like that. Tell me, what was it like? And she said, when I first got the news, I was very, very sad. And then I got angry. And then I got depressed and very worried. She said, one night I was playing checkers at the kitchen table with my partner. And all of a sudden I just took my arm and I ran all the checkers off the table and onto the floor. And I jumped up and I went and I got a pad of sticky notes. And I came back and I sat at the table with those sticky notes and I began to write a blessing on every single sticky note. And I'd take that note and I'd put it on one of the checker squares. And then I'd write something else that blesses me in my life, something that makes me happy, something that I love. And I'd write that out and I'd put it on one of those squares. And she said, in no time at all, I had every one of those squares filled except for the last one. And I took a sticky note and I wrote on it, cancer. And I put that on the last square. She said, I decided then and there that I was not going to pay any more attention to that last square. I was not going to pay any more attention to cancer than I was to all the rest of my blessings. So sure, I'd get up in the morning, I'd think about my cancer. But then I'd also look at the checkerboard about all the other things that I had in my life that just blessed me so much, and I did not want to lose sight of those. And she said, I even went as far to assign myself to do something nice for somebody on that board every day. It might be a phone call, it might be a postcard, it might be a gift, but just do something good for somebody else. Well, the cancer passed, it went into remission, she recovered. During that entire period, she never missed a day of work. And she told me that she thought that the therapy of giving gratitude and recognizing the blessings in her life was more helpful and more beneficial than the chemotherapy in healing her cancer. Now, every one of us in here has problems from time to time. We have challenges. We have all sorts of things that go wrong on a daily basis, and some of them stretch out for a long time. But you start to make a list, and I put a little checkerboard in the front of your bulletin just in case you want to use it. You go through there and you write about all the good things in your life, and you'll see that it outweighs the bad 100 to 1. It's just a matter of where we put our attention. See, life is always good. It's just that sometimes bad things happen. Life is always good. It's just that sometimes bad things happen. And those aren't stop signs, but they're stepping stones that lead us to a higher good. I'd like to tell you a story, and it's about a Mexican family. First of all, we'll start with Jose. Born and raised in Mexico. As a young man, he decided to come to the United States, to Los Angeles, to seek his fortune. It took him over a year to make the trek because he was on foot and he was hitchhiking. But he finally got here. And then he met Maria. She was also from Mexico. They hit it off, got married, had 2 children. Everything was going great. Jose was doing garden work for some of the big houses around him. Maria was doing house cleaning, but they had a nice little home. One day, Maria, pregnant with her 3rd child, was on the way home, and a truck came by, a government truck, and they picked her up and they put her in the truck along with a bunch of other Mexican immigrants. They took him down to the rail yard, put him in a rail car, and sent her off to Mexico. Now, Jose had absolutely no idea what happened. She wasn't allowed a phone call. She wasn't allowed to write a note. She wasn't allowed to do anything. She just disappeared. And after a lengthy period of time, Jose came to the conclusion that he would never see Maria again. Well, down in Mexico, Maria found a home with some relatives. And she made up her mind that she was going to get back to her husband some way, somehow. By this time, she had had her third child. But nevertheless, she gathered up the child, she began the trek, and 4 years after she was taken, she arrives back in Los Angeles at their little home. She's standing out in front of it with her 4-year-old child. As she walks up the steps, she sees Jose in the front yard in his garden. He grows corn. She stopped and she looked, and he saw her, and it was just this incredible scene. So they went on to have 2 more kids, and this story spans 50 years of their life. So now they had 5 children, and things were tough, but they made it. And there were times when they had to pick the beans in the garden just to have dinner. But through their entire life, there were all sorts of setbacks and upsets and tragedies that took place. They had one son that got killed by the police. They had another son that went to prison. They had a daughter-in-law who died giving birth. Well, the good news was they had a daughter that became a nun. And for a good Catholic family, that was an incredible benefit, because the nun would pray for them on a continual basis, and the good Lord would see favor with her and her family. But then, the nun fell in love with the priest, and they left their order. And this is just as tragic as if she had been killed for a good Catholic family. So as the story goes on, all sorts of different things like this happen. There's more skirmishes with the police. There's more things that go on in the home in regards to the economics. But after 50 years, there's Jose and Marina sitting at the kitchen table, weathered and old, but they're sitting there and they're holding hands. And Jose turns to Maria and says, "We've had a good life. God's been good to us." After all of that which happened, they were able to stand there in their space and say, "We've got a good life." For every one of us, let that be our affirmation. Not only today, but going forward, that no matter what is going on, we have got a good life. Now, one thing we can do to protect ourselves from the media and all the bombastic things that were layered upon us is to, first of all, put it into perspective, realize it's a small part of the world, it's not all of the world. Spend 5 minutes or a couple minutes, whatever you want to do, just thinking about the world's situations. And then think about the innocent victims who are either injured or killed or lose their home or lose their property as a result of what happened. And then send out some sort of a blessing to them. It might be love, it might be hope, it might be best wishes. Just spread that out to all the innocent people that are affected by it. And you think that doesn't make any difference, but it does. The energy that you exert into the universe does have a positive element to it. You know, some people say, well, I just turned the news off, or I quit getting the newspaper. You know, I don't think that we can live with put our head in the sand, whatever happens, I don't care. Everything that happens in this world is a part of our world, and is part of our lives. And I think to acknowledge it and add the most positive touch we can to it is part of our responsibility. The second thing we can do is inspire within us a sense of hope. Instead of seeing the world as it seems to be based on the media, develop a hope and a vision of how you would like the world to be. Perhaps it's a peaceful world. Perhaps it's a world where everybody has justice and liberty and happiness as inalienable rights, and nobody can take those away from them. How about everybody has food on the table and a shelter to live in? That's the hope for all of us to dream about. Because this world is going to evolve. We as human beings are going to evolve, and the problems we face today aren't the problems that generations in the future are going to face. And the third thing that we can do is spend time to think about the good in our lives, to bring balance into our lives. Sure, there are difficult situations we're dealing with, but they're good situations as well. So we need to bring a balance to it. And when we think about the good things, it's just like the woman did that had cancer, we just start recalling 2 or 3 or 4 of the good things in our life and spend a moment thinking about just one of them that makes us happy, that makes us smile, that makes us feel good. And then perhaps making the determination to do one good thing for one person that is close to you. It might be somebody that you haven't talked to for years, but you give them a call. I recently ran into somebody who called their art teacher from high school, and that was 40 years ago. She's in her 80s now, retired. But he called her to tell her how much she meant to her, and without her, she didn't think she'd make it through high school. Just a little thing. But think what it meant to that teacher. You know, we're all in this together. It's a world that's unfinished. It's a world that we're in the process of co-creating. It's a world that each of us has individual lives. We have freedom. We have liberty to do what we want to do. And we can all be a beneficial presence to this world and to all the people we come in contact with. Hope is the key. Hope isn't dreams. It's not wishful thinking, but it's putting into an order a desire you have. And if you stop and think about it, everything begins with a desire. You know, the seats that you're sitting in began with somebody's desire to make a softer seat because they're tired of sitting on a wooden bench in church. The car that you drove down in started with a desire by somebody to improve transportation. Everything begins with desire. Desire leads to hope. Hope leads to vision. Vision leads to manifestation of what can be. So think about that as we move into meditation. What is your greatest hope? What is your greatest blessing? What are you going to do today to make somebody feel good? Take a moment to contemplate that as we move into meditation. As we move into meditation, I invite you to take a deep breath. Hold it for a moment, then slowly exhale. And do that once more. And as you exhale, feel every part of your body becoming relaxed. This time is for you. It's time to put any problem or challenge you may be facing aside. Know that you are safe, you are secure, you are wanted, and you are loved in this very moment. That you have a good life. There's an old song that says, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." And it's more than a fun children's song. For each of us is a light. You have your light. It's your energy. And researchers tell us that our energy radiates out 5 or 6 feet around us. So we're in the company of somebody, they can actually feel our emotional energy. If it's good, if it's upbeat, if it's positive, it has some effect on them in regards to how they feel. Let your light shine. Don't let the problems and challenges anchor you down. For surely, the darkest night cannot put out the spiritual light. We now move into the silence. slowly begin to come back to this time and this place, and do so with a renewed energy, a renewed outlook, knowing that the way to balance is to contemplate the events of the world on every single day for a few minutes, and move to a prayer for those innocents who are affected by it. Nurture a hope within you of the world that you want to see, and know of conviction that will happen. And take a few minutes to think about all the good in your life. As I speak these words, please say them to yourself. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be me. And I'm happy to be here now. So it is.
This little light of mine, I will let it shine. This little light of mine, I will let it shine. This little light of mine, I will let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.